Taking a cruise on the open seas can make for a wonderful holiday, meeting new people, trying new activities, sampling the facilities that are available. But if you find yourself stuck in an endless time loop having to fight off hordes of nightmarish monsters, then perhaps it's not something to add to the family photo album. Welcome to Dread Nautical. Originally released in 2020 on all major consoles, Zen Studios' tactical turn-based RPG has made its way to Apple Arcade, meaning vanquishing evil can now be much more portable.
What foul new evil awaits us?
Waking up with patchy memory in the lowest deck of the ocean liner Hope, you take control of one of 4 characters, each with their own unique personality, and try to figure out what malevolent force has brought you here and is preventing your escape, all the while befriending new survivors and collecting resources to make sure you're properly equipped against the horrors that litter the ship's 20 decks.
Come on, I ain't got all day.
A familiar gameplay style married with witty dialogue and an intriguing story, but does it translate well to a smaller screen with the sacrifice of an external controller? Let's see how it fares. 10 minutes in and I'm already intrigued by the plot. Having woken up in a state of semi-amnesia, we're introduced to Jed, the ship's mechanic, and the tete-a-tete with him is full of pop culture references and a surprising amount of humour and wit. Straight out of the gate, Zen Studios wants us to know that we're allowed to have fun and not take the game too seriously.
The screaming's died down. I imagine a few souls have died too.
That's dark. I've got to see this for myself.
I decided to play as Fargo Drexler, a stereotypical gruff trenchcoat detective because of my penchant for Humphrey Bogart movies, and his personality shines through, so much that it makes it seem that the game was designed with him in mind, rather than him being a choice that happens to be slotted into an existing game. So well woven his narrative is throughout, it already makes me want to experience the game through the eyes of one of the other characters. Because of this aforementioned state of semi-amnesia, we're not overloaded with lore or story points and discover the world as we play, making the opening moments enjoyable and light, as we don't have to be laden down with world building or have too much exposition shoved down our throats. Being drip-fed the gameplay mechanics at a steady pace means we're not completely thrown in at the deep end with figuring out what we have to do, but also not left wanting the game to hurry up. The pacing of the tutorial acts more as a pat on the back rather than a pair of stabilizer wheels. An hour in, and the game has really begun to open up. The wit and humour is still prevalent, and several times I've been laughing out loud at the dialogue, keeping things fresh between conversations with others and an ever-increasingly difficult combat system. Limited inventory puts you in a position of having to plan ahead for every eventuality, and even though there's a lot of looting that can be done, you'll be having to decide on the fly what is worth taking up one of your precious free spaces, all the time keeping an eye on the finite durability of the items you've decided to take with you. The battles can be unforgiving, and in these early stages I died a couple of times due to poor planning, making me realise that though the art style is fun and you're having a laugh, this isn't going to be an easy game. No get in, get done, get gone. You need to prioritise, to strategise, or you'll face your demise. I'm excited to see how things progress with the companion system, having only just acquired my first, and what possibilities it will open up for facing the menaces ahead. Even though we've gone through the initial tutorial stages and it's a pleasant relief to not have our hand be held throughout, there were some aspects that weren't highlighted that I think could have been beneficial to the gameplay experience. I happened to discover the use of abilities, for example, somewhat by accident, and these could definitely have come in handy earlier. One mild problem that I see with this being a port to a touchscreen console is that having to use your digits to give orders can be somewhat of an impediment. To see the detailed stats of an item, you have to hold your finger on it. The information box then opens up under said finger, meaning you have to tilt the phone in order to see around your own body part. Also, a couple of times I've tried to issue a command, but because of the placement of the camera, it hasn't quite registered. I just feel on a console this wouldn't have been an issue due to a button input. 10 hours in and I have been completely sucked into the game. I'm near the end of the main story, and I think I may have been able to complete it within the 10-hour limit if not for dying numerous times on certain levels. The unforgiveness is very unforgiving at later stages, but there is certainly enough to keep you wanting to play for all this time. Even though the premise is somewhat the same, go to a deck, defeat the creatures, leave, each floor offers its own challenge and pitfalls. New creatures are introduced, each with new abilities, and the strategy you may have developed to win before now has to be completely flipped on its head to accommodate for new bumps in the road. The chances to recruit new companions come at you thick and fast, and though each has their own unique quirks and personality and can be a valued member to the team, there's a limit to how many you can recruit. There was a sad moment when I had to kick out an elderly war veteran to make way for a millennial with a candelabra.
You'll regret this.
A detailed upgrading system also gets introduced around the 2-hour mark, giving you the opportunity to spec your survivors how you see fit. With this though comes resource management, and you're constantly having to keep an eye on if everybody has food or a place to sleep or enough material to upgrade, adding another rich layer to the already challenging gameplay. Even after many hours, the landscape doesn't fail to catch the eye, with individually themed rooms getting increasingly more cursed as time goes on. It's the little details that keep you wanting to zoom in and check out what's happening here. Also the big details too. Why is there a kraken in the floor, and how did it get to this deck? The somewhat finicky problem with the controls has now become a lot more evident and severe, to the point of me cursing out loud at my poor iPhone. Several times I've tried to move somebody, only for them to move in the opposite direction or use up one of their items because of the way my hands happen to be placed. I've lost a couple of battles because of this, and the frustration is palpable. I feel with a controller this wouldn't be an issue, and so playing on your phone you're having to keep that extra thought of care with where you're pointing. Camera angles can be a killer. The initial intrigue of the plot can keep you interested for a while, and with top-ups of the lore from scattered tome pages and cutscenes after every boss fight, it helps keep the will to unravel the mystery. Although this isn't a driving factor, we mustn't forget that this is still a turn-based strategy game that benefits from having a narrative. The individual survivors can add some comic relief and pathos, but once enrolled, become nothing more than a commodity and resource. Unforgiving is a word that I've used, and I'll use it again. The gameplay can be unforgiving. You can spec out your characters to your desire and enter a battle with perfect strategy, only for it to be completely decimated and having to quickly think on your feet to avoid certain death. With a steady stream of increasingly better items and loot, and the ability to upgrade their stats, you can tailor to your gameplay style, offering endless ways to approach the game. Pacing can be slow at times due to the nature of a turn-based game, and not having the ability to fast forward through enemies' turns can leave you twiddling your thumbs waiting for the cutscene to end. Also, the way the camera pans to show the movements of an unrecruited survivor in another room can be grating after a while, and can somewhat distract from the focus on a battle that you're in a negative way. Though appearing somewhat simplistic, the graphics maintain an appeal throughout, and I think this very much lends to the favour of the experience. Zen Studios could very easily have made the art style realistic, modelling the rooms and creatures in grotesque detail, but I think doing so wouldn't have been necessary, and this cartoonish format allows you to focus on the actual difficulty of the game, as opposed to being distracted by flash and pomp. As the game progressed and I became more comfortable with proceedings, my issues with the controls grew ever more irksome, to the point I had to step away for a while after failing due to a misplaced tap of the screen. After seeing gameplay on a console, I can see how precision of movement is a given, whereas I found myself a lot of the time wishing out loud for the action to do as I intended, instead of interpreting it due to a skewed position of the camera or mistakenly highlighting some other item. After 10 hours in, I very much want to see the ending, and it isn't bothered to want to do so. With multiple difficulties, different initial characters to play as, a multitude of survivors to recruit and spec how you want, a wide array of items to match your gameplay style, and a new Game Plus mode, there is definitely a lot to bring people back. However, personally, I feel that once I've completed the first playthrough, I'd have had my fill. There's only so many times you can curse your own thumb.
No more.
If you're a fan of games such as XCOM, then this will feel like very familiar territory, and anyone interested in turn-based RPG should definitely give Nautical a go. Unless you're already subscribed to Apple Arcade, I'd highly recommend experiencing it on a console, as the only frustration should be in not being able to take down a meaty behemoth, not your knuckle wistfully grazing the screen resulting in 3 deaths. Funny and witty, you'll be entertained and challenged, and may even have to think twice about being on a floating metal can for weeks on end.
I've had more harrowing boat rides than this at Adventureland.
That was a 10 to 10 review of Nautical. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe and check out the full gameplay footage that I recorded from my time playing it. And please do leave a comment on what game I should play and review next. Luck and more to you all, and catch you later.